Officials have tried opening the floodgates to lessen the stress on the dam, but record rainfall this summer has made it a losing battle.
Something truly unexpected has just taken place at China's newest Megadam, leaving the world in awe. This massive structure, built along the Yangtze River, was already seen as a game-changer in renewable energy. As it powers up, it's clear that this dam isn't just another project. It's redefining what's possible in modern engineering. But what recent event has left experts questioning everything about this giant? Let's reveal the shocking twist that no one saw coming, and it makes the Chinese government really nervous. A dream on the brink of collapse. Rather than just building a big dam, the real aim was to use the power that already exists in nature. But instead of turning out to be the success everyone thought it would be, the dam has shocked people all over the world with its problems, and this happened before China could even show off what it had built. What was supposed to be a major step forward in using clean energy has ended up causing worry about possible big environmental problems and tensions between countries. People are wondering, is this huge structure about to fall apart? Or is something even more worrying going on that we don't see? Before we delve deeper, it's clear that the truth behind this mega dam is far more alarming than anyone imagined, and this might just be the beginning of an even greater revelation. Let's talk about what's happening with China's enormous dam, the harm it's doing to the environment, and how it could really change things for everyone. Investing 200 billion yuan into this project makes it even bigger than the famous Three Gorges Dam, and there were some pretty ambitious plans to pull it off. When they started building the Three Gorges Dam back in 1994, it wasn't just about making electricity to support China's fast economic growth. It was also about controlling the powerful Yangtze River, keeping millions safe from deadly floods, and showing off China's tech skills and national pride. But things haven't gone as smoothly as hoped. Nowadays, the country is dealing with more rainfall, worse flooding, and hotter heat waves, so much so that these extreme weather conditions have become pretty much the norm. This system of dams built along China's longest river is part of a bigger project involving many hydroelectric stations in some of the toughest places on Earth. Starting from high up in the mountains, these rivers, including the Yangtze, supply water to a huge part of the world's population. Over a dozen dams are currently being built in this area, but the narrow canyons they're in make it really tough, especially since it's an area that gets a lot of earthquakes. The whole project, costing a whopping 200 billion yuan, which is about $28.6 billion, took nearly 2 decades to finish and forced over 1 million people to move from their homes along the Yangtze River. The government had promised that the dam would keep communities safe from the kind of flood that only happens once every 100 years. But people have started to doubt if it really can. Recently, these doubts came back as the Yangtze Basin got hit with the heaviest rain it's seen in almost 60 years, causing the river and its many smaller rivers to overflow. As the heavy rain keeps coming down in central and southern China, experts are warning that one of the world's biggest dams could actually break. The damage has been huge. More than 158 people have either died or are missing, 3.67 million people have had to leave their homes, and 54.8 million people have been affected in total. The money lost is also massive, totaling 144 billion yuan, which is about $2.5 billion. For all its big dreams, the Three Gorges Dam has had a tough time living up to the high expectations set when they first started building it. The building work is flooding whole towns in Tibet, causing rare protests in one of China's most controlled regions. Hundreds of Tibetans in Dage County, which is in the Garza Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture of Sichuan Province, have gathered in front of the county government office to protest. They are upset about the building of a 1.1 million kilowatt hydropower station on the Dadu River. They also want to stop the government from making thousands of Tibetans leave Upper Wonong and Sha villages, as well as 6 important monasteries, including the 13th century Wonong Monastery that has really valuable murals from that time. These places are all expected to end up underwater once the dam's reservoir is filled. The locals are saying that the hydropower project doesn't respect the sacredness of these monasteries and the important role they play in Tibetan Buddhist culture, religion, and values. As China's largest river faces more trouble, it makes you wonder if trying to control nature is really worth it when so much is at risk. The Yangtze's struggle with men. The Yangtze River, stretching over 3,900 miles, is really a giant of Asia. It's the longest river on the continent and the 3rd longest in the world, with only the Nile and Amazon being longer. The Yangtze has been really important in shaping China's history, economy, and culture. Starting from the Tibetan Plateau, it winds through the heart of China and finally flows into the East China Sea at Shanghai. Along the way, it covers nearly 1/5 of China's land, provides water to millions, and supports key industries. Just the Delta region alone contributes to almost 20% of China's GDP. Imagine how much a whole country depends on just this one river. But as important as it is, the Yangtze can also be really dangerous. Huge dams like this one are seen as big symbols of progress. They're massive structures that can control rivers, make electricity, and provide water to millions of people. These enormous dams can power whole cities, help protect against floods, and help with farming. But they come with big risks. Building a dam is more than just stopping a river. It means changing the natural world, possibly forcing whole communities to move, and sometimes even wiping out cultural sites that have been around for centuries. And when these big projects don't work out, the results can be really bad. China has really embraced the idea of huge dams, including building a super dam on the Brahmaputra near its border with India, which has made things tense between the two countries. The Three Gorges Dam, the biggest hydropower project in the world, shows how much China wants to use the power of its rivers. While the country has made progress in using hydropower for clean energy, it has come at a cost. Delicate environments are being changed, and ancient Tibetan sites could get flooded. The Three Gorges Dam in China is now at critical levels, with only 36 feet left before the reservoir overflows. Officials have tried to open the floodgates to reduce the pressure on the dam, but a record amount of rain this summer has made that nearly impossible. And with China being a place where earthquakes happen a lot, there's always a risk of those too. The big question we're dealing with here is, are the good things about these huge dams worth the bad things they can bring? According to what China has calculated, the upper part of the Yangtze River, which they call the Jinsha, between Tibet and Sichuan, can create 112 gigawatts of electricity. This is about 1/4 of what the whole country can make from hydropower. This part of the world is known for having a lot of potential for hydropower because of the many rivers that flow fast from the high Tibetan Plateau down to lower areas. This moving water is crucial for China's efforts to stop adding to the carbon in the air, making hydropower a big part of their environmental plans. However, places that could make a lot of power from water, like areas with fast rivers and mountains, often have unstable ground. This means that although there's a big chance to make energy, the land in these areas can be shaky, which makes building there risky and tough. Take the Himalayas as an example. They have a lot of potential for hydropower, but they're also one of the places on Earth with the most earthquakes. Located where two big chunks of the Earth's crust meet, this area is at risk for landslides, earthquakes, and floods, which can be a real problem for the safety of dams. In Sichuan province, where the famous Three Gorges Dam is located, the risks are just as big. The dam itself generates a huge amount of hydropower, but the area is known for earthquakes. In 2008, a big earthquake hit the nearby Wenchuan area, eliminating more than 87,000 people. Though the Three Gorges Dam managed to survive the earthquake, it showed how real the risk of shaky ground is in places that can produce a lot of hydropower. The dam isn't just struggling with water, it's also facing natural dangers that could change everything in a blink. The high risk in China. Landslides and earthquakes are still issues that worry people about the many dams in the area. These examples show that while there's a big chance for making hydropower, the shaky nature of these areas makes building and keeping dams safe a huge challenge in engineering and safety. The technology needed to build in these shaky places is amazing and requires a lot of work and planning. The dams in this part of the Jinsha River are especially at risk because they're at the spot where two big pieces of the Earth's crust meet, which means there's a lot of faults and movement. The biggest dam in this group of dams will be 784 feet tall, taller than the Hoover Dam in the United States. Building this dam is extra challenging because it's right on the riverbed. They have to stabilize it by putting rocks and concrete into the soft bottom of the river. Landslides and falling rocks are common in the steep mountains around it, so they need to build big concrete walls on the sides of the gorge. Huge blocks of concrete, as big as tall buildings, are put along the cliffs to make the structures stronger. The river is known for its dangerous floods, which have caused some of the worst natural disasters ever. In the 20th century alone, floods eliminated around 300,000 people. One of the saddest events was in 1931, when 145,000 people died in one flood. Just 23 years later, in 1954, another big flood, along with the diseases that followed, eliminated 30,000 more people. The floods didn't just take lives, they also destroyed land, washing away farms and causing billions in damage. The Yangtze River is both a vital resource and a huge threat. It has shaped how China has grown in many ways. To keep over 15 million people in Shanghai and the lower Yangtze floodplains safe and to control flooding over nearly 9,000 square miles, they started building the Three Gorges Dam in 1994. This massive project, which cost between $28 and $60 billion, though the exact amount isn't clear because of different sources of funding, is almost 650 feet tall and stretches more than 1 mile across the Great Yangtze River. It's built to stand up to earthquakes up to a magnitude of 6.0. When they finished, the Three Gorges Dam created the Three Gorges Reservoir, a huge lake that goes about 400 miles upstream and holds nearly 32 million acre-feet. At that time, it was the biggest place in the world for making electricity from water, with a capacity of more than 20,000 megawatts. To give you an idea, that's more than 20 times the power of the Hoover Dam, like having 18 nuclear power plants, and it provides nearly 10% of China's energy needs. If they didn't have the dam, making that much electricity with coal would add 100 million tons of carbon dioxide to the air each year. Also, the dam made the Yangtze River easier for big ships to travel, helping to move goods far into the interior of China, which is great for trade. But even with all these benefits, the Three Gorges Dam has been a topic of debate since the beginning. The environmental worries are big. They include messing up the river's natural living spaces, putting endangered animals at risk, making waterborne diseases worse, and lowering water quality because the river flows slower. The rising water has even caused landslides and earthquakes, and they had to move over 1 million people from their homes. Whole communities were moved, and important historical places along the river were covered with water. To try to deal with the pollution problems, they set aside an extra $4.8 billion during the dam's construction to build new places to clean water and handle trash along the upper parts of the river. Even with these steps, the environmental and social effects still cause a lot of arguments. The Three Gorges Dam is both a symbol of what China wants to achieve and a reminder of the complicated choices that come with big projects like this. More than just buildings are at risk now, as the dam might soon take away pieces of history and culture that can never be replaced. Ancient heritage in danger of drowning. Thinking about the huge effects, the threats it brings to China's rich cultural world are just as big. China is a place where history, culture, and spiritual life are vividly alive everywhere you look. Think about the old temples, big towers, and holy places built into the mountains. Places that have been there for hundreds of years where people still come to pray, think quietly, and respect their ancestors. These aren't just places people visit, they're essential to the communities, especially in areas like Tibet, where the way of life and traditions are deeply part of daily life. As China speeds up its construction of massive hydropower dams, some truly irreplaceable pieces of cultural heritage are under severe threat. Imagine a 700-year-old monastery, rich with murals that have made it through countless upheavals like wars and revolutions, now at risk of getting engulfed by a rising reservoir. This isn't just about losing buildings. It's about losing the very essence and history of entire communities. In places like Tibet, monasteries are more than just places of worship. They are absolutely central to the life of the villages. If a monastery gets destroyed, it's like tearing the heart out of the community. But there's even more to be concerned about. These dams are being built on some seriously shaky ground in one of the most earthquake-prone zones in Asia. Just to give you an idea, back in 2007, the area between the Sichuan Basin and the Jinsha River experienced over 100 earthquakes. Now imagine what could happen if a big quake hits right along the fault line where the Jinsha River runs. It could seriously damage or even destroy all the dams along its path. And if just one dam fails, it could start a terrible domino effect, causing other dams to fail and leading to a massive disaster. The dangers of building these dams go way beyond just the risk of earthquakes. These dams threaten to wipe out Tibetan heritage sites and ancient communities. Picture this. One of these dams creates a huge reservoir stretching many miles up a valley, which means it would flood out villages in its way. And it turns out the Chinese authorities know what's going to happen. They've reported that the Jinsha Dam alone is expected to force nearly 4,000 people to move and flood out 5 temples. While they haven't shared specifics, experts think that one of the places at risk is the Woyne Monastery, which dates back to the 13th century. During the Cultural Revolution, many Tibetan monasteries were destroyed. However, some, like this one that houses murals and frescoes from 700 years ago, were spared. These ancient artworks are now in danger of being damaged forever by the waters of the rising reservoir. There have been some rare protests by Tibetans trying to stop the dam, but China's tight grip over the Tibetan regions makes it hard for news to get out. Ever since they sent troops into Tibet in 1950, the Chinese government has been trying to integrate the Tibetan people into a single national identity that's loyal to the Communist Party. In Tibetan culture, monasteries mean a lot more than just religious sites. They're the heartbeat of their communities, deeply woven into their spiritual, cultural, and social lives. To destroy a monastery is to do more than just knock down a building. It's wiping out centuries of traditions, spirituality, and identity. It's as if you're ripping the soul out of these towns, leaving nothing but an empty void where there was once vibrant life and deep connections. Despite the strong opposition from these communities, the response from the Chinese government has been non-existent. They haven't said a word. Also, these dams along the Jinsha River, a major branch of the Yangtze River, are critical to China's aggressive push to ramp up its hydropower capacity. These huge projects are designed to fuel the country's rapid economic growth, but they're not without huge risks. Some locals describe these mega dams as the fast food of the energy world. They provide a quick solution to power needs. Just like fast food quickly satisfies hunger. However, just like fast food, the long-term effects can be quite complex and not always good. Could this megadam be a symbol of progress? Or is there something far more secretive behind its construction? Share your thoughts and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.